Alright guys, I'm standing right at the first flowing trib entering into the side pool. You see the flagging marking there, and there's the trib coming in over there. Okay, panning on down. I'm going to pick up Mr. Trout somewhere down there. Oh, you're right close. Okay. At the bottom end of the pool, there's another trib, the second trib coming in over there. You can see the cars at the road up above, but that doesn't seem to be the culvert that we just opened. It's not muddy water. How many paces is it to here, Carl?
175 from the road.
175 paces to this one from the road, and 120 to the first one. Okay, this is the next little trib down. This is the one that Capula says is definitely perennial, plus the next one down. Again, you can see up to the road. This one doesn't seem to be running muddy either right now. This is the last little trib down on the upslope side before the old tipple area. It's not running muddy either. Today, Valentine's Day. And of course you can follow it across to the ribbon and down to the pipe discharge on the other side of the rail bed. And if you look down in there, you can see the iron stain on the stream bed below. But again, no muddy water. Okay.
In 3 minutes, or 3 seconds.
3 seconds. This is the borehole flowing into Judy Tributary on February 14th, 1998. And we're going downstream here now and try to get a flow rate on Judy Trib. But this is the pool just below the railroad bed with Judy 14 Trib coming in. You can see what looks like another discharge pipe that might have come from the old borehole over there. Difficult to get a flow rate there. You can see the date on the old rail bed culvert. Okay, this is the other end of that Judy 14 culvert under the rail bed. And panning up the stream, I'm standing right here where the discharge comes in from the borehole. And there's the discharge coming out of the borehole. For comparison's sake, I think you can see my foot to the lower left of the stream there and the borehole discharge. Upstream, Carl and Justin, we're going to try to get a place to build a crude weir a channel for a flow rate. All right, all we did at this point was a double bucket to just fit in that channel coming over there to get a measured 4-gallon bucket full on each side of the channel. To get an approximation. And we're located just this distance that you can see down there to the rail bed and the borehole discharge. February 14th, 1998. Yellow Creek, the old Appalachian Meco rail bed. Three bums laying along the road.
Our working crew. We're waiting for the train. It doesn't come.
Shemp, Larry, and Mo.
Wow, Shemp. Carly?
Okay.
That's up the trail. We're right at the edge of phase 1, which is just beyond the hobos is the pipeline. And that's it. It's not, here it goes. Okay, the second trip coming over. Downstream side of the impoundment, the upstream side of the impoundment, and the location of the Jeep.
Okay, this is the contaminated wetlands behind me and by Yellow Creek on state game lands.
Back up at the roadway for the culvert we opened and draining into the second drainage coming into the impoundment.
Turning point 100.
And this is the trout culvert right below us. Okay, we've come in on top of the hill, Hondo's reclaimed surface mine area, looking down into the Yellow Creek Valley as it flows beyond the town of Tide. And in the distance there you can see the remnants of the Tide coke ovens. And then on downstream it looks like there's a little impoundment of water, and somewhere in there is the Yellow Creek itself. You can see the water tower at the top end of Lucerne Mines swinging to the left, brings us down into, you can just see the top of the Lucerne refuse pile in the distance. We'll be over there in a few minutes. And in the distance beyond that, west into Pennsylvania. And just a quick flash into the sun to the Homer City Generating Station. Panning back to the north and then east, coke oven areas, Now we're going to be just about right above the tide refuse piles, and in the distance you can see parts of Indiana, Pennsylvania. The Indiana Hospital should just be about center screen now. That's Indiana Hospital. Okay, I wanted to get this guy up here in the sky somewhere. Can't find him now. There he goes over there. Okay, we've come out further along to the lip. Looking down in, you can see the coke ovens from another angle now. And panning to the left, Yellow Creek. And from this direction we can actually see some of the lower section of the little village of Tide. Turn just a little bit back from where we were just looking down the valley and look across the valley. This is the present active surface mine in progress over there, coming up the Tide, the other side of the Tide Valley. We're standing above the Tide refuse piles, ones that have recently been purchased. Panning downstream along Yellow Creek, you can see the first old sedimentation pond area over the edge of the slope here, and in the distance is Yellow Creek. Coming into the other wet sediment areas. On down, you can see down to the coke oven areas where we just were a little bit ago. You can see the coke ovens there in center screen. It looks like an impoundment just beyond them. Pan back up and up to the said ponds again. And if you look closely, you can see in Yellow Creek the light greenish streak along this side of that stream as it flows from right to left. The discharges and leachates coming off those refuse piles, and also apparently some trib coming in down there, it looks like.
Judy 14 coming in. Right above.
Up there. And once again in the distance, you can see the edges of Indiana, a water tower. I think that's up at, I can't think of the name of the place, 119 north of Indiana.
Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase, right. We're on top of the Lucerne Mines refuse pile. Justin's up on the highest point, on the peak. You can look out just over the edge there. See the coal gasification plant, what's left of the top of it, into the little town of Lucerne. As we swing to the left, you'll get a flare, but you'll also get the Homer City Generating Station. Okay, we're standing at the edge, Yellow Creek side, edge of the top of the pile. In the distance you can see Lucerne Mines, top end of it. Over the edge is the coal gasification plant, top of it. And looking down into the valley, you see the old haul road that came up through the valley and the lower end of Lucerne Mines. And we pan on down. You can see down into the valley along 119. Halliburton's. I think that's Halliburton tanks. And the contours on the pile, still the Lucerne refuse pile. And as we pan around, coal cleaning plant at Homer City Station. And the Homer City Station and a lot of sun flare. The extent of the piles is pretty large. It's a crater-like effect at about the top center. And some remnants of playtime. And in the distance you can see the Jeep.
Not in the distance here, it's like 50 feet away from me.
Panning back down along the edge of the pile again. We're looking what would be upstream towards the Yellow Creek end, up in there. Panning down once again. The hill, and as we pan down to the right, this is the hill here of the MECO discharges. The valley that you see there, indicated by the notch, is the valley of Route 954. And then we come to the area of the tide refuse piles. The beginning of the tide refuse pile area, which you can see in the distance through the trees, covered with snow. And this old road, actually it's a relatively new road, has been cut in underneath or at least on the entrance of a surface mine permit number on the Lucerne side, White Township side of Yellow Creek. Okay, this is standing on top of the tide refuse pile where the gas line crosses over and starts down the slope into the Yellow Creek project area. You can see the gas line climbing the next hill over on the other side of the Yellow Creek Valley. Follows up there, and the evergreens you see in that area are along Route 954 as it comes from Indiana, crosses down through the valley and up this right side on the other side of that little hill there to Rush Valley. Pan back around, we're looking down the valley from on top of the refuse pile at Tide. We're coming around and looking into the west. I'm getting a sun flare there. Let's see if we can get just a shot. There's Homer City Generating Station. And out over the edge of the piles, down into Tide. Slope slightly from where we were before, and you look down in the valley, and pick up Route 954 where it crosses through the valley. The houses up at the Ferguson Road development. Back down into the valley. There's Route 954. You will see a vehicle come through there just about now. There's one coming from the Indiana direction. I can hear the vehicles in the background. As we pan back out, zoom out to the front edge on the Yellow Creek side of the Tide refuse piles. You can see Yellow Creek below us. As we pan downstream, down the valley, and you see the old Fines refuse dewatering pits, and in the distance the little town of Tide. Got a few solar flares there from the sun, which is sinking towards the west. And back up Yellow Creek. You can see what's been called a war zone. So I walk further out towards the edge of the pile. If it doesn't crumble, we're going to look down this erosion valley right down to the old railroad bed at the bottom, which is now covered over by materials. The railroad bed enters this section at center screen at the moment right there. And once again, panning down the valley, down Yellow Creek Valley. And there's the pipeline again, traveling up over towards Ferguson Road. Turning around and looking back up towards the top of the pile, you can see the vehicle up there, and just beyond it is the area of the most recent surface mine at the top of the hill above the Tide refuse pile. It curves around and back down the slope. Here, walking across the pile, you can see the burned section called Red Dog or Red Boney, and how it had burned down through here, and some of the materials. And as we pan down and look at some of this stuff in rather close up, you can see the coloration and structure. And once again, valleys from the pile across the top here, down into the Yellow Creek Valley, which will be shortly coming up over the horizon of the pile there. You can just see it in the distance. The piles are kind of rugged, and we're getting some flare off the area. And again, in the distance, Yellow Creek. Walk a little further over, and we can look down across the top of the pile towards that surface mine area again, and down over into the town of Tide and the one Fines Pond. And swinging back across the top of the pile to the surface mine area, and back down into another very burned out area with a little bit of vegetation there. Bottom of the pile now, heading across, looking up towards the upstream section of Yellow Creek. You can see the fines ponds that we looked at from on top of the pile. And this is some more of the refuse materials over there. You notice the reddish cast to the drive areas and the burned sections within the piles themselves. And especially in here, you can see the burned out section of the pile and the coloration. Structures very burnt. These are a few of the old bent rails here in the foreground of one of the old sidings that went up through here, I would guess.